Well, hello everybody and welcome back to our Red Dead Redemption 2 modding series video. This will be the part that should have been the first part in the first place, but in my previous video I promised that I'm going to make a modding tutorial and this is it basically. Okay, so first of all I would like to thank you guys for your feedback on the first video here because it was very positive from you guys. I saw that there is value in these kind of little tutorials, even though this is a super small channel. I would appreciate if you would spread the word to people who are in need of some Red Dead Redemption 2 modding help or whatever, you know. I feel like I spent like 2 or 3 months learning the ropes and I'm in a very good place to give people advice at the very least, okay? On a user level, just so it makes their life a little bit easier. So I appreciate you guys and thank you very much and let's get into it. This video will be divided into proper chapters, so you can jump ahead to something that is more within your zone of interest here if you want. I will be starting off with the very basics. You can think of it like modding 101 and then we'll move on to more advanced modding techniques. I'm pretty sure that I will be able to tell you things that you don't already know or expand on things that you think you know in the later parts of this video, so feel free to jump ahead if you feel like it, okay? I will have everything on the screen now. Or you can find it below, of course, right above the video title. What's that called? Seek bar or something? Alright, super basic stuff, but I'm going to just assume that everybody knows already how to open zip or RAR files, which are, of course, these archive files. Nowadays, Windows can open these by default just fine, but you can just download either WinRAR or 7-zip. And there are, of course, other utilities that can be used for this purpose, okay? To start our Red Dead 2 modding, we're gonna need a few things, like we call these dependencies in the modding business, so to speak, if you want to call it that, alright? But this is not GTA 5, so we're not gonna call it a business. So let's... I'm sorry, GTA 5. Alright, let's get into it. So basically, we're gonna need a few things. First of all, we're gonna need Red Dead Redemption 2. Alright, bam, Red Dead Redemption 2 is here. This is our main directory. We're gonna use the latest version of the game, which is I think like 1491.90. You can use, I guess, pirated copies, whatever you want, but I don't know if those are moddable or not, so it's up to your discretion. I'm using just a normal, Steam version of the game. What else we gonna need? Something that will actually load our mods, right? This is called a SCRIPTHOOK, first of all, and an ASI loader. SCRIPTHOOK and ASI loader, these two components will be necessary for our mod loading needs. You can use two different kind of script hooks for Red Dead Redemption 2. The first one that I use is ScriptHook RDR-v2 right here. I'm just gonna quickly demonstrate this, download this for you guys. You download it and it comes with this nice little folder. You open that folder, you see the ScriptHook RDR2DLL, put that into your game folder. Your main game folder is where RDR2.exe is located. You just put that in. It will not overwrite anything for you because it will be new if you're installing it for the first time, and you're done. You can ignore the SDK folder, that's only for developers. Next up, we're gonna need an actual ASI loader. Now think of ScriptHook as something that enables mods to use the game's different functions in a way that it can like modify them, but it's not able to actually load these files into the game. That's why we need these ASI loaders, which is titled ModLoader right here. So you can just download that one. And in Red Dead Redemption 2, these usually come with these dinput8 DLL files, and you can just put them into your main game folder like before, and that's pretty much it. you are good to go on that front. If you want to, you can use a different script hook, which is Alexander Blade's script hook, but I personally don't use it. I haven't found any issues with this version of script hook, and this is newer, so presumably newer mods will be working with it better. But in my experience and from others, I heard that basically both of these should work just fine. And if a mod is broken, that is not because of a certain version of ScriptHook, okay? Will be probably because it's super outdated at this point and the game has been updated 3 times since those mods were introduced. But there are not many mods that are very broken, okay? There are some, but not too many. We will go over those in a later part as well. Okay, so we have our ModLoader and we have ScriptHook now, and we installed that into our game. So technically you are ready to install these kind of ASI mods into your game now, and they should work now. But in Red Dead 2 terms, there is another dependency that we are going to use, and that is gonna be Lenny's ModLoader here, which is basically responsible for loading modified game files into Red Dead 2. So it vastly expands upon the modding capabilities of the game, because now modders can actually modify textures or directly modify other game files, and obviously you see the value in that. So you just download this one. All right, now that you have this is the latest version, beta 11 at the time of this recording, of course. The only thing you need from here is in this ModLoader folder. You see this? You put all of these files, all of these into the games folder right here, and overwrite whatever is in there, okay? I mean, for you there won't be anything to overwrite, okay? So just put that into your game files. Some people might start typing immediately in a comment that, hey, you forgot about Mod Manager. No, I didn't forget about Mod Manager. We're gonna talk about Mod Manager later, and why I actually don't like to use Mod Manager myself, but we will talk about that in our next chapter here, okay? Technically, you are pretty much done with your dependencies. Now you have ScriptHook, you have an ASI loader, and you have LML, which is Lenny's ModLoader. So with these 3, you can basically install any mods into your game. Go to town right away if you want. This was part 1 of this chapter, and in part 2 we will learn how to check if these mods are actually loaded into our game or not. So basically check if they are working or not. It is actually a super simple process. So let's say we've installed some mods. We will use 2 examples. The first example will be for Lenny's ModLoader, and we will use this mod. It's called Online Content Unlocker. We will talk more about Online Content Unlocker in the last chapter of this video, where we'll look at optimizing some of our mods. And this is basically another dependency. It's not a hard dependency like Lenny's ModLoader. It's more like some mods require this because they will need to load online components into your game. And this enables that functionality, okay? So on its own, it's not going to do anything. In tandem with other mods, this will do some wonders. So we downloaded Online Content Unlocker, and you see this LML folder. This indicates that this should go into LML. Put that into LML right here. And then your mod is now installed technically. Now, how to check if this is working or not? It's very simple. If you installed everything correctly so far, then when you start your game and you will want to load into your game fully, like completely when you can control your character, you will have this vfs.log file here that was created when you started your game. Forgot to mention in this part that you should absolutely get Notepad++. It has awesome functionality, and I highly recommend it. And if you open this up right here, you can simply search for the mod that you want. So for example, if you search for online content, then it should come up with several things here that were loaded into the game because we use this mod. And how does it look like if it's not loaded into the game? Basically, you will either not find anything if you search for online content or any other names. You can of course search for file names directly that are loaded into the game. but I prefer searching for folders personally in this case, if I know the folder name, of course, which I do. You just have to look into the LML folder, see how it's named. So how do you know if these are not working? So either you will see nothing when you search for it, or you will see a message that something has failed to load. That is very rare. Usually if something is failing to load, that is because the authors left some files in the game folder, like text files or something, that are not supposed to be loaded into the game anyway. Some developers leave like desktop.ini files by accident. You know, it happens, but they will not load into the game. This log file will tell you about it. So you can just search for failed here, and if it gives you any hits, then something is failing to load. And if anything is failing to load or doesn't show up here, don't worry. First, of course, make sure that it's installed correctly, and to make sure that you load it into the game fully before checking this log file, okay? Because otherwise things may not show up here. And one important thing about this log is that this regenerates every single time when you start your game. So it will reflect on the last game session, how it looked like in the last game session, okay? That's about it. And let's do the same thing with an ASI mod. So how do we know if an ASI mod is working or not? Very simple. We're gonna use this mod called non-sticky hats as an example. So you just download it, save it, and this goes into your game folder as well, like so. Okay, just simply put that into your game folder. And that's pretty much it. When you start your game, just like before, this will generate a log file. It will be called SCRIPTHOOK rdr2.log. So if you click on it, just like with vfs.log, it will list all of your ASI files that got loaded. If you have a lot of these, you can just Ctrl F, search, and search for what you want. So in this case, we're gonna search for sticky. There you go. Non-sticky hats was loaded into the game the last time I started it. So here we go. That's super easy to check, and now you know that your mods are working or not. That's the end of chapter 1. If you're a super beginner, basically you can just go and mod right away. In chapter 2, we will learn about mod conflicts and what to do to avoid conflicts and how to solve conflicts in case we cannot avoid them. Okay, so here comes chapter 2. So, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. This is the next day, and in the previous chapter, we talked about the basics of Red Dead Redemption 2 modding, and now we will jump into some more advanced stuff. First of all, we will talk about mod conflicts and what we can do to avoid them. And the second part of this chapter will be about merging mods. And that is a little bit of a bigger topic. And let's get into it. First of all, what are mod conflicts? Okay, extremely simple. When two mods that you downloaded modify the same files, then those two mods will conflict with each other. Let me just quickly demonstrate it for you. Downloaded two mods. One of them is called Graphical Issue Fixes, the other one is called Persistent and Natural Dirt, and I put them inside my demonstration folder right here. And if you open both of these folders, you can see that both of these edit this visual settings.dat file. Please ignore the install.xml file that both of them has. That is a basic instruction file for Lenny's ModLoader. You can have as many as you want, obviously. But let's talk about the conflicting file here. So why is this a problem that these mods conflict with each other? It's extremely simple, because Lenny's ModLoader will only load one of these files on top of the original game file. So you cannot have both functionalities of these files if you just leave them like this, okay? That is not possible. Lenny's ModLoader will not do any merges for you. And you might recall from the previous video that I talked a little bit about this mod manager thing that Lenny's ModLoader comes with, and I suggested that you shouldn't really use it. I stand by this because it's very simple. This doesn't do anything to make sure that both of your mods work. If both edit the same files, all this does is basically sets a priority for one of them. So you can make sure that your selected mod loads over the other mod. But if other mod basically just consists of a visual settings of that file, you will completely lose the whole functionality of that mod that is loaded under your mod that has priority. There is no difference, basically. You can just go in here and delete either this one or this one. Like you can just go, you could go in there and just delete those files, and you would still need to find a conflicting mod. So basically, what's the point? In my opinion, mod manager, if you are even a little, a little tech savvy, it's not worth it at all. Alright, so it's not worth using. Instead, I will teach you how to merge your mods in this video. But first, let's see how you can detect mod conflicts. Because obviously, since we have only two mods in here right now, you can just go in here and look at both of these folders and see that these are indeed edit the same files. Alright, but what happens if you have 50 mods or 100 mods? It's not so easy to check anymore, is it? In this case, we're gonna use some tools that are basically checking for duplicates. These are simply just duplicate finder tools. I would like to highlight two of them that I know. One of them is made for Red Dead Redemption 2 specifically, and it's called LML Mod Conflict Checker tool. I don't use this one because sometimes it just won't start at all. Other times it will not close. But please feel free to use it if you want. It is a little bit simpler to use if it works than the other one. We're just gonna use what I always use, and that is gonna be a universal duplicate checker. So it's not made specifically for Red Dead Redemption 2. And that is called Dupe Guru. Alright, here is Dupe Guru, and you can just download the zip file. It's gonna be a portable little exe that you can run, and I will show you how this looks like when you start it up. Here it is, very simple. We will do it together. So this is how it looks like when you first start it up. And you can see faint plus and minus buttons here. It's not very visible because I'm using the dark mode, but they are those buttons. So you can just click on the little plus button, click on add folder, and you can just browse to your Red Dead Redemption 2 installation and select your LML folder right here. And you can just hit the scan button on the lower right corner. And here we go. So you see that the install.xml file and the visual settings of that file are conflicting. Obviously the install.xml file, you can ignore them. There is even a button to add things to the ignore list. If you right click on this, it's fine. But if you have 100 mods, this is easily gonna be the most useful tool at your disposal. It will list all of the conflicting files for you, okay? So that's pretty much it. The default settings for this program are just fine. Familiarize yourself with it and use it. I cannot stress this enough. This will be very useful for you if you are actually into modding a little bit more seriously. Basically, we are done with part 1 and we are going to move on to part 2 of this chapter, which is gonna be merging these two mods and what we're gonna be using to merge these mods. Alright, the first tool that I want to show you for merging mods is none other than our trusty Notepad++. Okay, Notepad++. I hope everyone already has this now, and we're just gonna install some additional functionality to it, and you can just do that if you go to the plugins tab on the top. Click on Plugins Admin, and here you want to search for Compare Plus, there will be a button called ComparePlus somewhere here, but I already have it installed, so it's not visible for me. But it will be here. You select it and click install. And the other component that you want to get from here is XML Tools. I already have that, but it will be visible here if you search for it and click install, okay? And here's how they look like when they are installed. To demonstrate how ComparePlus works, first of all, we're gonna open our two visual settings.dat files here. And you can either just use the little prompts here, or I advise you to familiarize yourself with the shortcuts. For comparing, you just press Ctrl-Alt+1 to compare the first file that you want to compare, and Ctrl-Alt+C to compare the second file. And here's how it looks like. We chose a mod that is pretty similar to each other. Obviously, the more things get modified, this can look a whole lot different. But here's how this looks like by default. So you can easily check and see what entries are being modified. I mean, it's pretty clear, right? So you just merge the changes that you want to merge from one mod to another. Obviously, for persistent and natural dirt, you just kind of have to know what the mod does, right? Obviously, this is just going to modify these dirt accumulation factors. So from persistent and natural dirt, you want to copy these entries into the other file. That's it, right? When you're done with this, you just save it. I will just speed this up. So now that we made our changes, just want to save our new version of the file. Persistent and natural dirt is now merged into visual settings.dat from graphical issue fixes. So you get both mods working together. It's that easy with some mods. It can be super simple with some mods. Okay, so this is the basics of merging. And what you can do here, just simply you can delete persistent dirt altogether as a mod. Alright, you can delete the whole mod, or you delete this one file. Obviously, that will get rid of the conflict. Graphical issue fixes will be the sole provider of the visual settings.dat override. Okay, so a few minutes earlier, I just talked about getting XML tools as well when we were getting ComparePlus for our merging needs. Now, this obviously had a purpose. So after you finish merging something, sometimes you can make little mistakes. Like what you see here is an XML document. This consists of these little strings. Okay, so every start tag has to have an end tag, basically. That's the simplest I can put it, okay? And I don't want to explain this like anymore, but the important thing is that you cannot really make a mistake. So if you delete a end tag, for example, I will just deleted the item tag from here, so this item tag has no closing tag, then what will happen if you try to save it? It's gonna give you an error message because we have XML Tools installed right over here, okay? If you were to try to go into a game with this file, you might get an infinite loading screen, you might get crashes, or you might get some invisible items, or your inventory would have no items. You know, it all depends on what files you are modifying at the time. Please always make sure that these XML documents that you are working with, if you are working with such documents, of course, if you're merging these, then these are always correct. And how can you make sure that these are at least correct when it comes to these tags? Well, very simple. Once you save a document, and sometimes it doesn't give you an error message when you save it, so just do a manual check. You go to the plugins tab, XML Tools, and click on Check XML Syntax. And then it will give you a little heads up that there are no errors detected. And that's about it, okay? That will be the end of part 2 of this chapter, and there will be one last part 3, advanced merging. But before we can begin with that, we have to talk about some more external tools. So far I talked about the duplicate checker tools, and I talked about Notepad++ with the two plugins ComparePlus and XML Tools. Okay, now we have to talk about Open4. and CodeX. And Open4, you might heard the name before. It's basically a file manager for Rockstar games. I will link the download right here. You download it, install it. This is how it looks like, and you just choose Red Dead Redemption 2 obviously, and this is how it would look like. Now what do we use it for? In a merging scenario, if you're talking about file merging or like modifying files, then we are usually going to search for a file. So for example, we're gonna search for dispatch.meta here as our example, and you will see that it lists all dispatch.meta files that are within the main Red Dead Redemption 2 folder. This will list files that are in the LML, the Lenny's ModLoader folders as well. So you will see more files on my end than you would see normally. But how can you make sure that you are looking at the vanilla game file? Very simple. It will be located in one of the RPF files. That's where the game stores the data. If it's not marked with an update or a DLC patch or anything like that, it's usually a 1.0 file, and it will be located in one of the RPF files. You can see that there is an update 1 version of this dispatch.meta. That just means that Rockstar has updated this file somewhere along the line, and always the highest updated version of a file is the one that will be loaded into the game. Usually with the files that I work on, I just copy them to a folder, and this folder in this case, vanilla files in my Red Dead Redemption 2 folder. So I'm just gonna put this, go in here and put the dispatch.meta file into vanilla files, okay? And I'm just gonna replace the one that's already in there. You can see that I worked on some files in the past or compare them to modded files, so you will see a lot of different files here for me personally, but I advise you to have these separately somewhere. And what you can do with these, you can use this for comparison tools, you can use it to make your own mods if you really want to, but that's it really. And let's talk about CodeX. Is a paid software. It is locked behind Patreon, but it costs maybe $5 a month, okay? And once you buy it, you can use the latest version or the version that was available at the time of purchase forever. So that is CodeX. CodeX is very much like Open4, only it's still getting updates, it's maintained, and it has greater functionality, and the search is much faster. So for example, if you search for dispatch, only takes moments for CodeX. So CodeX is much faster. You can see that it can see the file here. You can open the dispatch file, for example, and that's it. That's CodeX. CodeX will be essential later when we will talk about even more advanced stuff. For now, please just understand that at least Open4 will most likely be necessary for you going forward. So I would start by getting that one. And let's talk about some advanced merging. Alright, so we talked about that smaller files can be merged safely with Notepad++'s ComparePlus plugin. But what happens if it's a bigger file? Now, I will tell you right now that Notepad++ will not be able to handle big text files. It will just straight up crash, and the compare algorithm is not as advanced as we would like it to be. So it can do some mismatch lines here and there, which is not good when you want to merge things. What can we use? Well, here comes another tool at our disposal, and this is none other than Beyond Compare. This is the link. It's a paid software, $35 with a 30-day trial period where you get the full feature set. So I advise you to at least try this. It's well worth the money. It's obviously for people who are really serious about modding. Don't want to get into it too much. I just want to show you an example. So obviously this can do the same things as Notepad++, only on a much bigger scale. So for example, here are two metapets files, one from Toast's Restored Pet Pack and one from Cowgirl's Revision. I will just bring up the mods right here. So that's Toast's Restored Pet Pack. and there's Cowgirls Revisioned. There you go. So these are the two mods, will be linked. I successfully merged these two together previously. Obviously this kind of merge looks super ugly because some of the lines in this one are still unhashed. Okay, so you see unknown member, which is always just gonna give you trouble, but with some patience and some practice, you will be able to merge this in a couple of hours even, okay? So basically, you just have to spend time with this. It is not something that I can explain to you. You have to have common sense. You have to understand the modifications you are making, sort of. You don't have to understand like what stands for what, but you have to understand what mod brings what with it, okay? So this is something that you have to stare at a while, experiment with it, and then you will get better at it. But what is very unique with this tool is that it can do a three-way merge, and I prepared this for us. You might recall that I just talked about dispatch.meta earlier, and I saved a vanilla dispatch.meta file. This comparison tool can do a three-way comparison. As you can see, it loads the ancestor file, the vanilla file, into the middle. And then you can have two mods. In my case, I'm using, this is Super Ultimate Horse mod, and this will be on the right side here with the magenta color, and Prime and Low Rebalance will be on the left side here with the baby blue colors, okay? The good thing about this is that you can clearly understand when something was left at a vanilla value with some mods and what things were modified by another mod. So you can just safely put the modifications from another mod into the other mod, knowing that you are not screwing up any edits that that particular mod made. I hope it is clear what I'm trying to get at here, because it kind of only makes sense when you are in this merging scenario, all right, when you're actually thinking about what you're doing. So I don't want to spend any more time with this, but just know that it can do three-way merges. Extremely useful in certain scenarios, and I highly advise you to get this software if you're serious about doing some merges on your own. And that's all the time I want to spend on it, because without practice it's just useless to talk about this anyway, alright? If you need like a tutorial, just hit me up or something, but you can figure it out on your own if you can handle Notepad++ merges, alright? Just a little disclaimer before we get to the next part. This whole guide, this video, is aimed at people at a user level and not necessarily for mod authors. I'm sure that some mod authors will find this useful, but I wanted this to resonate with people who are willing to go for that extra mile to make their game stable with mods. And with that, we made it to chapter 3. Ladies and gentlemen, and I believe this will be the most useful chapter for people, as most of the information here will be new, and it will be about optimizing your Lenny's ModLoader install method to make sure that your game stays stable. But first we have to understand what is going on exactly. So let's rewind the clock back to December for 2023, where a player, Dagger323, discovered that after heavily modding their game with upscales, texture overhauls, and other stuff, the spawn behavior of NPCs, wildlife, and even trains just declined quite heavily. Simply put, after modding their game, the internal memory management of the game couldn't cope with the amount of data anymore, and it started killing the game from the inside out, basically. Started simplifying the game to accommodate mods that got pushed into the game. So please feel free to read the whole thread if you want to. There are 25 pages. It's quite interesting if you are into this stuff. I will get to the more important information in due time here. I also made a full-on video about this spawn issue and how to test your game's stability for this exact problem. And this would be the companion piece for that video, where we will actually learn how to mitigate issues that might come from installing some mods. So the only way to understand how this all works is if we look at a few mods. Let's look at an example of a streaming mod, which is period accurate currency right here. That's gonna be our example. It wants to go into our LML folder and it wants to go into this stream folder. If you don't have a stream folder for these mods, you may create one, but I am here to talk about why using the stream folder is a bad idea in the first place, okay? And that is because, first of all, you lose track of what mods you install here. For example, this is 70 files and that's just one mod, right? What happens if you have 5 of these? You will never remember which file came with which mod, so you will just lost. And if you want to delete a specific mod for whatever reason, then you won't know where to start, okay? So that's just one problem with using this stream folder. The other problem is actually that they theorize in this very thread here that using too many of these streaming mods causes the issue, because you have to understand that one of the ways Lenny's ModLoader loads these mods into the game is either by streaming, which means that they kinda load the mod on top of another mod and it just kinda streams that mod on top of the other mod. I sound unsure because I don't exactly know how it works, and I doubt that anybody besides the creators know how this differ from the other method that Lenny's ModLoader is using. And that other method is called replacement. So we are going to be looking at a lot of install.xml files in order to do some optimizing, because the problem stems from a lot of mods just using streaming instead of file replacement. So we are going to try to convert our streaming mods to file replacement. Let's use persistent dirt, because it's gonna be easy to understand. If you look at the install file, a lot of persistent dirt, you see it is first of all an XML file, which we talked about earlier. And if you don't already have, get the XML tools right here, so you can always check if there are errors in this XML syntax. To convert easy to understand, XML always have a starting tag and always have an ending tag, okay, for every kind of thing. But what is interesting here, so this is the second type of installation method that Lenny's ModLoader is using, and this is called file replacement. So if you look at this replaces this exact visual settings.dat file with the one that is in the folder. You can just see that file path just says visual settings.dat. That means that it's not loading it from any subfolder, it's just sitting there next to the install.xml file. This file path line always looking at things from the install.xml's point of view. For example, if this was in a folder called visual, just put it in here, then it would need to look like this, visual, and it would need to look like this to load it from that folder, okay? It's that simple. I hope this is understandable, and this can work with many subfolders. So that is the two main ways that Lenny's ModLoader will load these files. So one of them is just putting that into the stream folder. The other one is file replacement. Another way to use stream, because this is one way, you can just use a stream folder in the main Lenny's ModLoader folder that you have. But another way that some mods use, this is actually a preferred method to use stream, because at least they are not cluttering up. They are not just sitting in one folder, not knowing which file belongs to which mod. The other way is none other than, if you look at another install.xml file, then you can see that the resource here is calling for streaming files. Now this means that is just basically simulating a stream folder in these folders. You can see that it has two streaming files folder. One of them is called Old Lantern, the other one is called Player Lantern. So whatever is put in here is directly streamed into the game. And Lenny's ModLoader is smart enough to know that these have to overwrite existing game files that are named exactly this, okay? And it will do just that. And that's okay. But it is known to cause issues, so that's why we are here. Apparently, use too many of these streaming files, either by doing it this way or doing it via the stream folder. Apparently, that is the main driver behind spawning issues that Dagger323 and later on others reported with their game, right? I incline to agree somewhat, because after I converted every one of my mods to use the file replacement method, I think that my game became more stable. But I am not 100% certain that it's not a placebo effect, because I still had to remove some mods in order to not have issues in Sandony and to be able to do the chicken run successfully. These are references to my earlier video, which you should watch, or watch it after this one if you want to test how stable your game is exactly. Okay, that's about it. So this is streaming, but how can you convert these streaming files into replacement types, right? That is the question. So this is the goal and this is what you have. So in this example, when we are using simple bronze lanterns right here, how can we achieve our goal? You just have to use a bit of common sense and just make sure that you understand how XMLs work. So as I said, there is a start tag, there is an end tag. In this part, I'm showing you the very basics of these install.xmls, so you understand the later parts better. You are working in between these resources tags every time, okay? If you're loading a resource, you want to add this. But between these two resource tags, you can have 15 million different file replacement if you want to, okay? So you don't need to put a new resource tag between each of them. You could even do this. So you don't need to put a new resource tag if you put a streaming files in here, all right? And you don't need to look at how it lines up in the document. You just have to make sure that it's a proper XML string. So there is a start tag, there is an end tag, and for the next one as well. So if you save this and you run an XML syntax check, there are no errors. And you can have 15 million different streaming files folders if you want to. It doesn't matter. Okay, but obviously don't do this. I'm just making an example that it's not as delicate. On this side, you can see that the mod author actually made it into its own resource, like both of them. I believe this is just for mod manager, because in mod manager you are able to like kind of disable part of a mod. For Lenny's ModLoader to work, you need this easy install for sure. Start tag, end tag. You need the resources, start tag, end tag. And in between the resources, you need one resource tag, one resource start tag, and one resource end tag. And in between, you can cram as many of your file replacement or streaming files as you want. That is going to be your main way of handling it. Let's get back to the original problem. We want to convert these streaming files into file replacement. How can we do that? If we go into the folder, we have s-interact lantern 01x.yft. And this doesn't tell us much. Obviously, this is going to be a texture file and like a model file within the game that is gonna be replaced with the modified files, and then we get like a different skin for our lantern. We can understand that much, but how can we achieve this? We have our example here, so we can just copy and paste that in here if we want to, okay? And quickly check in the syntax. The syntax is still intact, right? It's a little bit ugly because it's not lined up. It doesn't matter, but obviously this is not correct, so let's just make it correct. So the file path that we want is gonna be old lantern slash, so you just copy whatever is in here. You see it's in the old lantern folder, and then you're gonna copy this whole name of it. And this is the manual way. I will show you a faster way later, but this is the manual way of doing that. Okay, you make another copy of this and you do this with the other one. Okay, and now you have this twice in old lantern. Okay, what about the gamepad? Where is it supposed to go? We have to use a tool for that. Let's use Open4 as an example, because Open4 is free, everybody has that, okay? And then I will show it with CodeX as well in a moment, because CodeX is a little bit faster. Okay, so here's Open4, you can see Open4. Alright, so here's Open4. So in Open4, I already showed you earlier, you can search for things. You can just search for this exact file name and search in all archive. Let's see what this comes up with. Okay, so it's already got a hit here. You see there are more hits. So which one should we use? This is the 1.0 version of this file, and for whatever reason it was put into one of the updates that Rockstar released in this patch pack. Okay, but how can we do this? So first of all, we go here, and this will be the manual way of converting our streaming files to file replacement via install.xml basically. And we right click here, we're gonna copy the address so we can see how this looks like exactly. I'm just gonna put this address down here for the time being so we can see it. All right, you can ignore this part. This part is obviously going to be my Red Dead Redemption 2 folder, and then this is the file path inside the game. Here you have to understand how this works. To mount these folders, we have to go back to patch pack, and then we open the first RPF that comes up, and then you can look at content.xml and it will tell you how to mount it. I will have a full-on mount path for every single one of these RPF files and patch files and DLC packs files in the game folder in the video description. And this is how you have to mount this file. So it's gonna be DLC patch pack 05, like so. This is what you need to put in here. DLC patch pack 005, and the rest will be more straightforward. Okay, so if you look at it, DLC patch pack 005, and then you don't need to do the RPF here, you need to do x64 levels RDR3 props lev des and /s lev des, and then you have to do another slash and just copy the name of it. So this is obviously very time consuming to do it by hand, but this is how it looks like. And now the game knows that it has to replace this file exactly when the game starts with the file in old lanterns. And I assume that it's gonna be the same thing with this one. If you see a plus high version of something, that means that it's basically the same file but with a higher resolution. And it looks like it is going to go to the same place. Okay, so you can just do a very simple copy paste and then the name of the file, which will go here. Okay, so that's how this looks like. I think you understand this, but it is time consuming to do. Now there is one easier method to do this. Of course I messed up the syntax, which is okay. There we go. You can check the syntax, it's intact, it's fine. So now you have this beauty and the old lantern will be replaced. But what happens if we want to simplify this a little bit, just a little bit? Then what you can do as an alternative, I will just show you with an alternative install. By the way, the install.xml always has to be install.xml, okay, every time. I'm just making a separate one so to make sure you get the gist of it. So we could simplify it. Let's just delete one of these, and if you put an S to it, then we have FileReplacements, okay? And what this will do is we'll actually take a folder, so we can tell the game to use the old lantern folder in here and replace things that are in here, okay? I'm just checking if I put it in correctly. Basically what we told the game, that everything from the old lantern folder should replace things in this folder, obviously if the names match. This means that you don't need to create individual entries for files that would go into the same folder. So it's gonna look at the names of these two files and replace them in here. Some people say that it's better if you do every file individually, like so, like we did before, like just with a simple file replacement, and not use this method. But I haven't seen any evidence of that. All right, let's get on to the next part here, which is going to be this semi-automated tool that somebody has made. Well, let's just say that you want to simplify your own life with this stuff and you don't want to do everything by hand. Now, we are super lucky because a player has made a tool. Okay, this is it. And I will have the pastebin link in the description of this video. And what you want to do with this one is just hit download. It's download a text file by default. All right, and we're gonna put that into, let's just do a demonstration. So we're gonna create a new folder, anywhere, install XML demonstration. Let's call it that, okay? And we're just gonna save it. And if you rename this file, anything, you can rename it anything, but the important thing is that the file extension in the end has to be .ps1, okay? And that will convert it into PowerShell, all right? If you have issues seeing file extensions, just click on view in any of your folders on your computer, click show, and make sure that there is a tick here that the file extensions are visible for you. If you're using Windows 10, it should be in folder options. If you search for folder options in your start menu, it should be right here. For some reason, if you execute it, it doesn't work. I will have a link there as well. Okay, so make sure of course that you have PowerShell on your computer. And if you hit edit, now for me, this PowerShell editor will come up. I don't know if it's a basic Windows component. I suspect if it is. If not, just enable it somehow. Just Google it. Okay, so this Windows PowerShell ISE is what you want. And you only need to do two things with this. Now, first of all, let me show you something cool. So if you look at here, if there's a file in, let's say, levels 4, then it's just called platform. If there's a file in MP006, it will be DLC MP006 when you mount it. But this will do it for you automatically. But just in case you want to do everything by hand, you can take this and just save it somewhere for yourself, so you don't have to figure it out on your own how it looks like when you are typing that into your install.xml files. Okay, so what does this tool actually do? So let's look at our bronze lantern examples here. Okay, simple bronze lanterns right here. We can just put the file path into the top here between the brackets. You see how it looks like? That's gonna be our source folder. And the text path file, it wants this document called source paths. You can just create a new text document and name it source paths. But of course, just don't save it here, save it somewhere where you actually save it there. And this is the more interesting things about this. Copy the path of your source path file and put it into the PS1 file. Save it. So you can save it like this, but of course our source paths are empty at the moment, right? That's gonna be an issue. The source paths file always has to contain all the file paths that you are replacing in the game folder for every single file. How can we find the source paths? We already were there with Open4. If we just go back into our simple bronze lanterns folder and we take this, and then this will take a little while, correct? Yeah, I will show you an easier way after this, but this is how you would do it with Open4. You want to replace the newest version of it, the highest numbered version. of the file, because that would be loaded by default into the game anyway. So right click, copy path, and then you can put that in there. Okay, so that is one way. And then you can go for it with all of these basically. So unfortunately it's time consuming, and with Open4 it takes longer, but that's how you can do it. Right, copy, paste. And now you have your source path, at least for the old lantern part of it. So now you can run it because your source path is populated with what we want. And it will translate these into proper installation instructions. So you click on run script. It should create this easy install.xml file here where you put your source paths file. Okay. And if you open it, this is how it looks like. So it might look familiar for you. Of course, you can customize some stuff like the author that's gonna be in here. You can put the author little Tommy or, you know, Dickweed, anything you want. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter who the author is in this case when we are making these changes. This is just for mod manager, which we are not using anyway, because this is a better way to manage your mods, although it's more tedious, okay? But that's up for debate if it's worth it or not. And yeah, this is how it looks like, and you might notice that it looks exactly like the one I made by hand. If we have like 300 items, right, so it's easy to do with a mod that has like 2 or 4 items, but let's just pretend that there are more here. I created a little AutoHotkey script for this. I will link everything for you. I will give you the script, and this will allow me to make everything much faster. So first of all, what this does, if you copy something into Notepad++, then it's gonna do a new line automatically, you see. By default, it doesn't do that. So you don't have to find the end of the line and press enter. It saves you a few shortcuts. And the other one, what this does, so if you press Ctrl+Shift+C, then it's gonna copy the whole name, including the file extension, by just clicking on a file. So you don't have to right click, rename, copy, just Ctrl+Shift+C, it's gonna copy the whole file name, and then you can just put that into whatever you want, okay? And how does this help you? Let's just stay with these source paths, and we're gonna be using CodeX, because CodeX will be infinitely faster for our need. CodeX looks like this. It's just like Open4 essentially, but faster, more functions, and intuitive, and obviously it's more up to date. We have our file name here, Ctrl+Shift+C, put that into Codex, enter, you see immediately which one is the latest. It's usually gonna be the last one, that's the latest you see. DLC patch pack 005. You press Ctrl+Shift+C here as well, so you don't even need to right click anything. And then that can go into source paths. TXT file, you see, that's how it works. So again, Ctrl+Shift+C, Codex, enter, and Ctrl+Shift+C, Ctrl+V, that's it, you're done. You're done, that's it, the one whole mod done. If you run this again, because you don't need to modify anything, because it's still pointed at simple bronze lanterns, don't forget to save your source paths. So you run this again, you check the easy install XML that was created, and it looks like this. So it added everything that we ever want. And how to put that into our game? Very simple. You delete your install.xml files, and you put the easy install XML in here and rename that to install.xml. And that's it, easy. Do it with every single mod. What about a mod that doesn't come with a folder, like what we just demonstrated, period accurate currency? Previously put it into a stream folder. I already told you, forget about that. Delete the whole thing, the stream folder, create a new folder, call it period accurate currency. There you go. And you create a, let's just say, call it a money folder. You technically don't even need a folder, I just want it to look nicer. And there you go, there's a money folder. If you followed so far, you know what to do. You just copy the path up until here, and it will automatically do the subfolders for you. Okay, so you can have 50 subfolders, it will automatically be done for you with this program. You just point the program to the parent folder, okay? And then you can save this script immediately. And we just need to find the source paths. Okay, so let's just do a few of these with the same method, and I will show you how fast it is with my codex method. Okay, so should be super fast. You have the source paths file that you worked on earlier. One other thing about the source paths file, that you can just use it for all of your entries. Okay, you don't need to create new source path files. You can just continuously add entries into it, and this PS1 script can handle a lot of entries. You have the AutoHotkey set up here on the bottom. Ctrl+Shift+C and just put that into Codex. Ctrl+Shift+C, put it in. Ctrl+Shift+C, put it into Codex. Ctrl+Shift+C. And that's how it goes for every single one of these, okay? Infinitely faster than doing it manually, and then you feel like you've done something. And of course you see all of these are just my LML folder, so for you in a normal installation, not important for you. So you want to do this with each and every file in here, and in the end what I usually do is just count it. So it says 20 items here, so you obviously want to see 20 new entries here. Okay, 20 new entries. In the end, when you're done with all you wanted to do, you just save the source path files and you run this little script. It did the exact same thing. It created this easy install XML file, you can see, and this is ready to go into this folder here because it knows already that it will go into this money subfolder. You understand how it works, I hope. You copy this, put that in, right click and just rename that to install.xml, and that's it. And now LML will be able to load these into and replace the files. So these are not stream files anymore. If you ever want to remove them, it's much easier because you don't have to look at the stream folder and search like 100 or 200 different files. You just remove this whole folder altogether. You just delete it. Easy peasy, couldn't be easier. Hey guys, editing chunk here, and I just wanted to mention one other thing concerning these install.xml files, and that is basically if you are converting a mod that has other entries than streaming files or file replacements. Let me just show you an example, because then you will need to do some manual adjusting later on. So if I have my LML folder right here, my personal one, I have toast restored petpack right here, and if I open the install.xml file, you can see that there are other files called data files right here. These files are important because if a mod comes with some extra assets, for example some add-ons, obviously some more files will be required for the game to read these, and these are the data files. If your original install.xml file for a mod comes with these, you have to put them in your own install.xml file that you're creating with the little script here, okay? Always look at the original install.xml file and compare it to your final one after you're done with converting the streams into replacements. Okay, so that's about it. So don't forget to put these in here, and these can go under the single resource tag in the XML string. Okay, so you don't have to treat them anything special. That's pretty much it. Finally, one last thing about this, that sometimes you cannot find the streaming files, either because they come as an add-on or maybe some other reasons you cannot find the files that you're looking for with Codex or Open4. It happens, then you can just create a separate folder. For example, here is add-on pads, which contains a lot of newly added items for toast restored petpack. This will go into the install.xml as a streaming file. Pretty simple because we talked about it earlier, and then you don't need to do anything with this. This will be streamed into the game into its right place. We are using it strictly for those things that we cannot replace otherwise, okay? And the final thing I want to mention in this section is that you're doing this because most mods are unfortunately just not converted to file replacement, and as we know, this might cause spawning issues in the end. And most mod authors are still not aware of this, and they are not optimizing their files. They are still using stream as their preferred method of providing you with their files. Okay, so you're just doing the work for them. But in an ideal scenario, they would be the ones who do all of this and update their mods. Okay, that's about it. Hello again, ladies and gentlemen. So we've arrived at the last chapter of this video. And here we are going to talk about basically everything that couldn't fit into the previous chapters. And the first thing I want to talk about is texture optimization. So let's say that you've done your install.xml optimizations, you've converted everything to FileReplacement. There's still something in the back of your mind that says that I could do more, and then you see these huge texture mods that you're working with, and you see that some of the textures could be better optimized, okay? And this is for you crazy people among you who really want to get the most performance out of your modded game by still heavily modding it, okay? So this is for you guys. But for this one, you absolutely have to use CodeX. There's no way around it that I know. So CodeX is necessary. If you're not willing to pay a few bucks for CodeX, unfortunately this will be out of your reach. But this is how you could get your big mods like YM's DLC optimized better, or any other. I will give you an example here, because I myself have encountered some less optimized mods, and let me just get into it then. Here's one of my favorite horse mods. It is Stay Vanilla Horses Overhaul. Okay, it's a brilliant mod. Horses in here are mind-blowingly beautiful. So here we go, we downloaded it, and the only problem with this mod is that you see that it comes, first of all, of course it can be optimized for FileReplacement. The second problem is that if you look in the stream folder, you see that the high and the normal quality textures are exactly the same file sizes. You see this? This is basically the same texture, it's just the LOD version of it. The one that you probably see further away, because as you get closer to an object, the full high quality version of the texture should load. But if you're further away from a horse, for example, it shouldn't use the full-on high quality texture of that horse, because it's just, you won't see it. It's just a waste of game memory. And this mod author unfortunately just forgot, or didn't care about optimizing the textures for the low quality version. So what we're going to do, we're going to leave the high quality versions. You see it's always marked with plus high, unchanged, because they are obviously beautifully made. But we're going to slightly optimize the lower quality versions of these textures. We have this mod downloaded, right? It comes with its main component, which is like the assets, and you see that there are, like texture assets, so metapath file and horse stats. So obviously these will be installed via FileReplacement, but the mod author provided everything else via stream. And you see there are 303 items in here. The first thing we want to do is separate them. You can immediately see that the YMT files, if you sort them by type, you can immediately separate all of the YMT files from here. We're not going to do anything with these. We're just going to put them in here just for safekeeping, and then you can delete them to have less clutter. But what about the other ones? So if you order everything by name here, then you just have to look until you find files that don't have plus high variants, and you can just skim through these. But you see in the end there are a couple of them that don't have plus high variants. Make sure that you don't touch these, just copy them into the same folder and delete them from here, and you're left with 204 items. Okay, all can be optimized here. So we're gonna again separate the plus high variants here, copy all of them, put them in the plus high folder that we've created earlier for safekeeping, and you can delete them. So now you are left with the files that are actually in need of optimization, okay? All of these. We have to use both Open4 and we have to use CodeX. And then we'll use a texture optimizer as well. But let's just get into Open4 first. So you are in the stream folder now with Open4, where we have all of the folders that we worked on. Let's work on one of these. Let's say we are working on this one. All right. And what we want to do, we want to open it with Open4. You can see the texture files in here. And what you want to do with your textures that you're looking at in Open4, you just click on Export All Textures. And you click on Portable Network Graphics PNG. So that's the format we want here. And then Open4 will ask us where to save them. We want to save them into a new folder. Just put them into that folder for now. And in Open4, we will also want to get the YTD file that we've been working on here. Copy that into your work folder here. First, copy the name of it, and then put that into a new folder. And then rename the new folder to the exact name of this file that you've been working on. All right, this is optional, but it will help you obviously, because you will have 102 items in the end. Once you're done with that, enter that folder. You see you have your PNG files, you have your untouched texture file, and then we're gonna create one more subfolder with the same name and put the PNG files in there. And this is gonna be important for codex purposes in a second. And before we get to that, I want to talk about our image optimizer, and that is going to be a program called Pinga. It's probably not the best image optimizer in the world. You could probably do it by hand, but this is gonna be automatic, this is gonna be fast, and this is gonna be a pretty good optimizer for your buck, which is $0 money. So just download it, and this is gonna be again a portable software. You don't need to install anything. This is Pinga, very simple. It will work with these PNG files beautifully. First of all, we want to look into the settings. This is how I have mine set up. So we want PNG to be extreme compression. The method should be lossy, the quality should be maxed out. You can tick preserve all metadata here. That's about it. And it's the resize thing that it's important for us. And I tell you why. So if you look into Open4 again, in Open4 it tells you what the resolution of your horse textures were. So you see that this was a 2K texture, and if you look at it you can see that it's quite big, 3.3 megabytes, so that is quite a heavy texture. We're gonna be very elegant with this. We're gonna be halving these pixels here. So you look at Pinga and you set your resize options to 124 pixels, okay? And then just save. And then you have your texture right here in your folder, and you pull that texture into Pinga. There you go, and just click optimize in Pinga. And there you go, from the 3.3 megabytes, it created a 783 kilobyte texture, and you probably wouldn't be able to tell that this was optimized. The other texture here was 1024x resolution, so that's like basically 1K. Every time you're changing the resolution of a texture, you have to reset Pinga settings. We're gonna be halving it, so let's set this to 512 pixels and save, and then put that texture into Pinga, hit optimize. Now it is a 54 kilobyte file, and there you go, that's it. And now we can get onto codex. So you have codex, and you see this is the folder that you created. Obviously you have to browse for it in codex, and this is the file that we have been working with. We're gonna open the original texture directory, you see, that we've saved earlier with Open4. Codex can do some wonders here. So you see this button in codex on next to the minus button. This is a replace button. So you can just replace the selected texture with your optimized texture right here. So this is gonna be that texture, and it replaces it. And then it will ask you what kind of compression format you want. Now, I used this DXT5/BC3 compression format. I tested this in my game and I haven't found any issues, so I think this is safe to use. So make sure you select that. It should be selected by default. And make sure that the generate MIPS is ticked and click OK. And there you go, that's one of your textures done. Do the same thing with the other one, you click on replace and you replace the other one as well. So this is how it looks like, and then you can press the little save button and it is going to save it into our folder where our PNG files were located by default. So you click save and there you go. So from 1.8 megabyte to 582 kilobytes. Okay, this takes time. But explaining this to you took a lot longer than actually doing it when you're doing it yourself. When you've done a few of these, it will go like this, you know, like second nature. And of course, when you are done with all of your texture optimization, don't forget to just put those next to the high textures and then load those into the game however you want to, preferably by using file replacement, of course. While I was making this video, a new, well, let's call it discovery has been made, and that is regarding the mod online content unlocker. As I said in the very beginning of the video, it is a dependency for a lot of other mods. It unlocks multiplayer assets, animations, textures, sounds, weapons. Some players speculate that this could actually be responsible for some issues. Of course, not on its own, but when you pair it with other mods, when you already have a heavily modded game, then it's possible that this contributes to some of the issues. Because if you look at this, the file size of this is not big, okay? So it's gonna be like a couple of kilobytes. But if you look at what it does, for example, if you look at one of the content.xml files, it unlocks all of these for single player use. And it unlocks a lot more stuff than you would probably ever want. So it unlocks animations for all of the horses, it unlocks cutscenes, it unlocks, you know, of course, some of them is useful like textures. A lot of mods require textures, but it unlocks a whole lot more than you would ever want probably. It unlocks extra animations for wild animals even, but those animations could probably just overwrite or overlap the existing animations. For example, I heard these are unconfirmed. Okay, so this is speculation right now. I heard that, for example, maybe causes alligators to not open their mouth, for example, because in the online version it was simplified. Or the rope cutting animation when you're freeing a hostage is sped up, or the smoking animation is just simply quicker or different. There's a lot of things that it could affect effectively, because if you think about it, it unlocks these things, but it very well could just load them over the base assets and files and animations and sounds and so on and so forth. So we don't know the extent of this so far. Some players are experimenting with disabling a lot of these extra stuff and just leaving the crucial components like horse textures, pet textures, things like that that are more commonly used by mods that require online content unlocker. If anything develops here in this area, I will definitely make it its own video, and we'll see how that goes. Other than that, I wanted to talk about different Gameconfig files that you can get over on Red Dead Redemption 2 Nexus or anywhere else. For example, this is one of them. Some of them promise they fix train bugs, they fix spawn issues, and what they do essentially, if you look into these files, let me just go through some of the changes. It adds some kind of new game script handler pool value, which I don't know if that's useful. It ups weapon components for pets by quite a lot, you know. I don't know how that is very useful on its own. It multiplies the ambient pads, for example, from 100 to 350, so 3.5 times the value, and the baseline pad multiplier is up like 4 times. So I just don't know how useful they are. Like in my testing, I don't see that it changes the population, for example. I don't see that it helps with more pad spawning. If anything, I think this game config, this is my personal opinion, and I'm not bashing on these game configs, on any game configs. Feel free to try them. Some people swear by them. I myself have never had any really better experience using any of these. The only thing that I find useful is actually upping this AI texture max memory to 7.5K or 10K, because this helps with some stuttering issues for some reason. Upping these pad multiplier values, I don't know. I don't know, guys. Feel free to use them. I'm skeptical about them. That's my stance on game config values. Everything here is up for debate, of course. I also wanted to talk about save corruption. Some people think that their save is corrupted. I have never seen any evidence of saves being corrupted in the game by any mods. There might be some janky behavior if the person used like 15 different clothing mods or something and then trying to load into a save where you don't have those clothing mods installed, but I never seen like hard corrupted saves in Red Dead Redemption 2, so I personally don't think that is a thing in this game. I know how save corruption looks like because I'm coming from a GTA 4, and save corruption there is a real thing and it happens a lot when you're modding your game, but not in Red Dead 2. I don't think it's real personally, but just be aware that some people think that it is a thing. Alright, so that brings us to the end of this video actually. I really want to thank you guys for sticking through this. If you did, even if you just jumped through chapters, it's fine. Thank you. Thank you very much. And if you can just drop a like or a subscribe, I'm very, very happy if you do that. But like this is fine if you just watch it. I hope you enjoyed some of it, some parts. And there will be one more video at least for this Red Dead 2 series at least that I'm planning. There might be more, but there will be at least one more. And that is going to be when I talk about my personal mod list. And that's gonna be a fun video finally, because we can go into the game properly and show you some stuff. And I can show you the merges that I made. And I made a lot of merges myself for a lot of pretty high prestige mods, I feel like. And I think I got a very good mod list for you guys. I will release everything in that video once I figure out how to package everything so it doesn't break your game immediately. So I will do that for you. But my suggestion, if you're serious about modding, and this is the conclusion of this video, the main part, the gist of it that I want you to take away from this is the install.xml optimization. So if you want a stable Red Dead 2 with mods, please at least try to convert some of your mods to FileReplacement, because as things are, it seems like that is actually a valid way to alleviate some of the issues that come with streaming mods. So please try to do that. I hope you will use some of the techniques I showed you. I hope I taught you some things that you didn't know before, and I hope that you had fun. So go ahead and mod, alright? Just mod, experiment, make mistakes. You will make some mistakes, it's fine. But hopefully, with this out there, you will make less mistakes. Okay? Ciao.